All right. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks especially to Clint for arranging the free handouts before. If he agreed to do that every time I give a presentation, he's going to draw a big crowd by giving away free stuff out of the back of his truck. Appreciate that, Clint. Tonight, is it shared? Oh, it's showing up on your laptop like I shared it through Teams. All right. Yeah. So we thought tonight a topic that might interest some folks is these really large scale hamfests. Who has been to one of the really big ones? We'll say big is more than 10,000 people. There's a few. Kind of one of my goals for tonight is, if you've never been to one, to give you a little taste of what it would be like to go to one of these big ones. A lot of people wind up making it kind of a bucket list thing to do. Like, I got to get to this thing at least once. So to give you a little feel for what the draw is, why you might want to go do that. All right. I'm going to turn the volume down a little bit too. There we go. So we're going to talk tonight a little bit about the history. So then, just to make it fun, we've got a nice alliteration. So we're going to talk also about fests. What are these big ones? Flea markets, forums, fanfare, food, and fun. History? I stayed away from that. So, little history. The first mention of Hamfest in print form was in the October issue 1924 of QST, or as my dad liked to call it, QRM. So I went back and looked at the actual copy of that magazine, which you can find online. And so that's 100 years old now. And it was mentioned that there was going to be a Midwest Division Hamfest. These early first Hamfests, apparently, because I found this in more than one case, started with a big banquet. I like that in the description of this Hamfest, they ended by saying, what's the last sentence? The stunts held after the serving of the dinner were the feature of the banquet, and much hilarity was caused by the radio liars contest, and several wild yarns were heard. I'm glad hams have come a long way since 1924 and no longer get involved in such things, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. So the really large-scale Hamfest, this one is in Friedrichshafen. Chuck, have you been to this one? No. All right. So this one's in Germany. It's the largest Hamfest in Europe. And I think with the Zeppelins on their logo, I think it's held in an airport and like one of the hangars that kind of got started. But it's really considered to be the largest Hamfest in Europe, with tens of thousands, in attendance, and it's been going for quite a few years. If you're at one of these really major ones, there you're more likely to see kind of the big forums and the big new products being unveiled and that sort of thing. This would be one of those. Another one would be the JARL Tokyo Ham Fair. This will be coming up in September, and it's another one of the majors. So the Japanese manufacturers, ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood, tend to release their new products at this one. And then here's where the fun begins for me. This is HamCation. Has anybody ever been to HamCation? HamCation? HamCation is in Orlando, and it's in February. So I think, my personal opinion is, HamCation began to gain some traction as Hamvention in Dayton started to kind of lose a little bit of traction. So, and we'll get into a little bit of that in a minute, but there was kind of this period maybe 15 years ago where collectively all of ham radio was looking for an alternative to Hamvention, and HamCation came on the rise. Being in Orlando in February is kind of an attraction for some people. And so this is walking through some of the, buildings, and then here we can see folks are outdoors enjoying a nice ham fest, wearing shorts and t-shirts, and I think it was about 75 degrees that day. So very pleasant weather is a huge draw for folks wanting to go somewhere. That was the case with us. Like, we were tired of winter and we needed to go somewhere. So, and like a 4-day trip. Yeah, it was probably more my wife's idea than my idea, but we hopped on a plane and got some cheap air tickets and went down and enjoyed HamCation. So, and it was a lot of fun. It's a little smaller still than Hamvention. So, but smaller, they're getting maybe 20,000. Hamvention this year hit 36,000. So, it's not as big, but certainly far bigger than anything we have around here. The forums were great. A lot of the forums were kind of repeats from, there would be a speaker on a circuit who, so to speak, who might go to 5 or 6 of the major hamfests and give the same sort of pitch. This is where I found out about the solar QSO party and kind of all the solar activities that were going on. So still a great thing to do. So if you're ever looking for an excuse to go to Florida in February, HamCation would be high on our list. Switching over to Hamvention, and I threw some details up here, a little history of Dayton's Hamvention. So the first Hamvention occurred in 1952 at the Biltmore Hotel, according to QST magazine. Hara Arena had been the home of the Hamvention since 1964, and it had been there all the way through 2016, when the city of Dayton said, we're going to tear down the arena. And many people would agree it was certainly time to tear down the arena. Kind of overdue. In 2017, Hamvention moved to Xenia, Ohio, so a little bit east of town, out at the it's a county fairgrounds, but a fairly nice and sizable county fairgrounds. The only 2 years that Hamvention was not held was COVID years, 2020 and 2021. And then again in this year, they had over 36,000. This is the old Hara Arena. So I had gone to a couple Hamfests with my dad about 20 years ago or more at Hara Arena at Dayton. It was kind of one of those things that he always wanted to make sure that he got one in, and so we enjoyed that. This arena is an old like hockey rink, and it was used for, I think, Arena League football. There was a ballroom dancing competition that was held there. It was kind of used for everything by the community, but boy, it needed a lot of structural help. It was in sad shape, and they weren't investing in doing anything with it any longer. One year when we were selling products there for PowerFilm Solar, we were indoors. I went out for a walk out in the flea market parking area, and the indoor plumbing had an issue, shall we say, that led to some really nasty material bubbling up through the parking lot surface and flowing through all of the vendors who were out there selling stuff in the flea market. And I still am totally flabbergasted that the Department of Health didn't come and just shut the whole place down and tell everybody, it's a safety issue. But they kept selling stuff, and guys are walking around with corn dogs, and so. So yeah, we did go sell. So when I worked there, I was convinced, after having gone to going to Hamvention with my dad a couple times, this would be a great place to sell ham products or ham adjacent products maybe. And so we had a great time doing that, and it was, a big success for us. But yeah, these two big ham fests, HamCation, Hamvention, will be kind of what we'll hit on a little bit tonight then. Just for timing wise, you can all pencil this into your calendars. Kind of February 7th through 9th of 2025 will be the next HamCation in Orlando. Again, it's at a fairgrounds. And it's I won't go over the top and say it's like this primo place to hold a ham fest. It's okay. You think of a typical fairgrounds and you pretty much have in mind what this place is. There's some nice indoor pavilion buildings where they might, be showing sheep or something at a fair one time, but they convert it all to be space for vendors to sell stuff, and it works quite well. Same thing with Hamvention. So the next Hamvention will be kind of that mid-May, like third week in May time frame. So that'll be next 2025. Let's talk about the flea markets. Well, even getting there, at Xenia, Ohio, it's a small rural town. I can't imagine that it's much larger really than, it's probably a little bit bigger than Gilbert, but not as big as Ames. So that's kind of the size of the town. And then to have 36,000 people all swarm on it, one of the big issues that they have is parking and logistics for all of that traffic coming in all at once. So there's a lot of traffic flow that has to be considered. So my recommendation would be go early, maybe park in one of the remote lots and take a shuttle bus in, something like that. But it is amazing to see that many people all swarm on a, space that's not really built for that many people to hit all at once. They have an AM radio station that this year was, they were interviewing the mayor of the town as we're coming in, and this mayor lady was talking about, I don't know what all this ham radio stuff is, but we're glad to have you here, and please spend your money while you're here. Here's a new Italian restaurant we got. And so she was enjoying it. So no Hamvention parking on paved surfaces. Violators will be towed. I know, that's pretty clear. Stay off the paved surfaces. So, you get there, you get in line to get tickets. You can buy tickets ahead of time with most of these. It's not, I suppose you could buy tickets ahead of time for the Des Moines Ham Fest, but this is kind of a different scale. So if you don't have tickets ahead of time, just plan on you're going to spend 20, 30 minutes in line. The really nice thing about that, though, is I've never stood in line waiting for tickets for Hamvention or the Orlando one, HamCation, and not been able to just strike a conversation with somebody that's also waiting in line. It's not like you're waiting in line to get into Hilton for a game or something like that. People are glad to be there, eager to go spend money and have fun. That should have been the last F, funds, because you walk away with none of them. So walking around outside the flea market, I think this car was both at Hamvention and at HamCation. It's kind of like the ultimate mobile setup. It's not a very large car, but he's got this luggage rack on top, and it's all decked out with everything's functional. So it's a rotatable beam with a rotor and everything, and it looks like maybe I'm going to guess a 6-meter Moxon and a couple Yagis for 440 or something underneath that, 2 meters and 440 maybe. And then I don't know if you see the big screwdriver on the back kind of covers everything else. So you see a lot of that kind of stuff as you walk around. You kind of are almost amazed at how many antennas you see on cars. And you'll see other things. There's a ham radio YouTuber, and there's several YouTubers walking around the grounds that if you've ever seen a YouTube that gets a lot of views, that's all themed around ham radio stuff, those people that make those views are probably at one of the major ham shows. And this is a gal who makes some YouTube videos who has a pair of ducks that I think she's adopted, and they're like handicapped ducks or something. And so she takes them around in a red wagon, and everybody stops and wants to pet the ducks. And so you see just random things like that. This is a Canadian ham who had special parking next to one of the pavilion buildings. And so he has designed a new trailer hitch mount with this thing, whole thing pivots up and locks in place. And so he just thought this was the greatest thing. He's going to sell 1 million of them. But right now he's got kind of a design idea. It's not in mass production yet. He just wanted to see, if I put this out here, will I get some traction? Will a bunch of people want to buy this thing? So he bought a really expensive space next to like where DX Engineering and ICOM have their booths. And so you walk past this, 20 times a day looking at this thing. But he also had all these signs he put over the back of his car. I like the one that says, this bumper damaged was caused by my XYL, not by any of my products. So that's just a great disclaimer to put on there. But he was a character, so I talked to him for a while. Yeah, it's right next to all the toilets, so people are going to have to walk by there. Yeah. And this brings up another topic. So you will meet people at Hamvention or HamCation that are maybe in your field of interest in ham radio that will kind of make the trip all the worth the while. So we showed up on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, no, Friday morning, go in to have breakfast right before we go to, so these shows run Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's Friday morning having breakfast, and this hotel is just packed with hams. Yeah, a bunch of, yeah. Yeah. And so getting ready to have breakfast, and I strike up this conversation with this guy. Well, I hear him talking to somebody else. So I've had in my mind for the past couple of years, since I got rid of my tower and don't have the Yagis anymore, and I'll go out and do POTA and things like that, but I would love to be able to do directional HF in some way again. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm thinking like phased verticals maybe. So what's a good way to get phased verticals? And I've been kind of racking my brain about this thing for a while, and like I'd love to get a phasing unit and phase a couple 20-meter verticals, and what would that look like? And I'm having breakfast, and I kind of am listening to this guy, and I'm like, this guy seems really familiar. And he's sitting right next to me. And it turned out, it finally dawned on me, he was on a YouTube show talking about with the DX Commander guy. Do you guys know who DX Commander guy is? So he was talking about phasing a couple verticals, and he had designed a circuit and a switching mechanism, and he was like just kind of experimenting with all this stuff. I'm like, you're the guy I wanted to talk to. And so I wound up talking to him and striking up a conversation. But you can meet and just kind of interact with people like that, like, I don't know anywhere else where you could have that kind of random engagement with somebody and strike something up. And actually, this guy that designed this thing, he's looking for projects. And so I'm like, well, if you could take his design and you could manufacture that circuit together, you could make the product that would make me happy. So as you walk around the flea market area, there's stuff that's inside in these buildings. There's stuff that's outside. Acres and acres of parking lot that are just packed with cars with the trunks open, and they're selling stuff, and a table and maybe a 10 by 10 tent. There's a whole section of just RVs back to back to back. They've sold out the RV section years in advance now. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll just take my RV to the 2025 one, all the spaces are gone. So, but there are people in the RV slots that camp there, and then they'll sell stuff as well. So it's just quite the thing to walk through the flea market area. This is so some of the flea market area is got places that you can walk, and it's kind of okay. Most of it is a fairgrounds, and so you're parking on grass. Of course, it rained on Friday morning as we were all showing up. It gets muddy, and it seems like almost every year at Hamvention, it rains some and it gets muddy. Some years it gets so muddy that cars get in there and they get stuck and they have to be towed out. So just plan on, don't wear your best shoes, maybe put it that way, because it'll get pretty muddy. And you can see a guy over here pulling a wagon through the slop. But it's just stalls filled with stuff that you would find in the back of Clint's truck. Some of it's really good. Some of it's kind of rare. I like to call it the Hamteeks Roadshow, because you will find, classic. There's a Heath kit and maybe a KWM2 and some really nice paddles over there. Oh, this is the guy that I know not many of you guys are CW guys, but Michael March, who makes the March magnetic paddles, which are awesome paddles, right there in a booth. So you just walk around and see this guy had a sign that says Noel's College Fund, electronic treasures, free water with purchase. So just everybody selling something. I did actually buy a few things myself this year. I put them all in the picture here too. So I brought it if anybody wants to look at it. And I do have a prize. Who has a Yaesu radio? Few. Who doesn't have a Yaesu radio? Who wants a Yaesu hat? Anybody? So Yaesu just sits at their booth. You want a Yaesu hat? All right, you got a Yaesu hat. There you go. So in the Yaesu booth, when you walk through, every year they're passing out hats. I don't think they released a new radio this year. They had a big booth with a lot of stuff in it and a ton of hats. And they take your ID badge when you walk in and they do a little hole punch in it to make sure that you don't get two hats. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting booth. I also bought, I don't know, can you guys all see what's up here? Yeah. A 4-to-1 balance. So I can do some antenna stuff, a little dummy load, some adapter connectors. You can find tons of that. This is a full 20-meter transceiver, but it's all in little parts right now. So I got to put it together, but so that'll be fun. So, and you always wind up with that top picture there, the top of the picture. I don't know about you guys, but I have this genetic defect that if there's something gadgety, I get drawn to it. And this is a gadgety, they call it the rope roller. And it's, well, Paul and Clint will probably appreciate it. If you're tethering up a mast or anything with rope, you just need to quickly cinch it up, and it's got a little lever thing that you can pull on it and cinch it up. So I'll play with that. I got it all here in the bag. I'll show it to you later. Let's talk about forums. Man, there were a ton of forums. The forums alone, if you're looking for something to go, just hear endless talks, 3 days straight of talks if you want. And they have, I think, 4 or 5 parallel rooms that are all running back to back to back like this with whatever topics you want. So here's just Friday for just one of the rooms. Their topics were Linux and ham radio software. There's a National Weather Service discussion about tornadoes and tornado spotting in Ohio. There was a discussion on balloon satellites, remoting your HF station if you want to do that and you've never done that before. Some digital mode stuff, TCP/IP on the 4.4 net. I'm not sure what that is. And then the ham radio science citizen investigation. So just a full day in one room, and there's multiple rooms having these forum discussions. I happen to go to discussions on the solar eclipse. There was a group from, I think, the University in Alabama that had built some hardware, sent it up on a balloon with some APRS tracking equipment, and they had one of these cameras that'll do a 360 image. And they had that hanging from the bottom. And when it got up to altitude, and that you can go onto the YouTube video for this and see it, and you can scroll around and look around 360 degrees during the eclipse. So then you see the sun, this big shadow that's kind of cast over everything. It's really a cool image. And then the balloon pops when it gets at the right altitude and spirals down. So just a lot of interesting talks. I went to contesting and antennas. Every year there's a group that talks about contesting. Every year there's a group that talks about antennas. I like to go to those. There was a talk that was called from the ARRL, because this was a ARRL national. They always every year have a national event. This year Dayton was their national event, and they had one that was really an interesting talks. All of the ARRL talks are posted to YouTube, and this one is called "Ground is a Myth." I would encourage you to go watch the video called "Ground is a Myth." It was really interesting. So, and then the last one that's on this list is there was one on POTA. There's a guy, his call sign is KB9VBR, who's out of Wisconsin. And he does really well-made videos that he puts on YouTube. And he hosted a forum to talk about kind of tips and tricks for doing POTA. So this is an example of kind of the things that you can stumble into in some of these forums. So this was a discussion on contesting and where contesting is going in the future. And one of the topics that came up was around artificial intelligence. And one of the things that the contesting community is wrestling with is how are we going to navigate the future as AI starts to come into the world of contesting. And apparently, the question says, AI seems to be a hot topic these days. I heard recently about an AI-driven CW robot built by UA5A. It tunes a band or many bands at a time like a skimmer, and then listens for CQs or completed QSOs, chooses the best targets and times its calls. And this guy heard a demo of it, and it was running at 240 QSO rate on CW, all search and pounce. So you could go to bed and maintain your 240 QSO rate while the robot runs everything. And so they're asking the guys these are the guys that run the big contests, the CQ and the ARRL big contests. How are we going to navigate this? And so it's just interesting discussions that you can find yourself in some of these forums. On the DXing forum, that was another one I went to. This guy was giving an update on, I think he was named either the DXing Hall of Fame or the DX, I don't think he was the DXpedition of the year. He's a one-man band, but he gave a really interesting talk on his adventure trying to get to somewhere in, I should have wrote it down, but Polynesia somewhere. And he wound up on this island that had about 30 people, and they were all related to each other. And it took 3 weeks for him to get to this island. And they said, "Oh, we're glad you're here. Here's where you're staying. And this is your accommodations for the next like 2 or 3 weeks till the next boat comes." And he got really sick, like deathly ill. They had spent funds for his food budget, and it was really bad. Like he thought he could die. And this guy was, probably about 70 years old. So anyway, quite an adventure. So just the forums are really a treat. There was a Radio Son one that Paul probably would have enjoyed. These guys were trying to compare their own Pico balloons, which have weather tracking sensors and telemetry that comes back. They were one of the questions comes up is, how accurate are those things? And when you send up one of these balloons with the trackers on them, if they're measuring pressure or temperature or whatever, is that a valid reading? Well, they were baselining it against the very expensive equipment that the NOAA uses, or whoever puts up the National Weather Service, or whoever puts up the other ones. And so they're kind of doing some baselining there and comparing that. The antenna forum, I thought, so these are just random pictures I took that I want to save for myself later, not really knowing that I was going to wind up giving a talk on them. So this is just kind of the potpourri of Pat taking pictures. But this guy gave a great talk on what do you do if you want to put up a antenna farm in a very small lot, an urban lot. And he came up with a way to put up I think it was 160 meter antenna. But instead of having radials that went out everywhere, he uses what he calls the folded counterpoise, the FCP. And by coming up with this scheme of elevated but folded back on itself, a single radial, he was actually able to get pretty good performance compared to similar tests with, I don't know if I have the comparison, but similar tests with actual radials on the ground. So again, the forums make it a lot of fun. There are other forums besides the ones that you would see on site at the event. So for example, there's something called 4 Days in May. That's kind of focused on QRP, and I'd say, have you ever been to 4 Days in May, Paul? Yeah. Oh, the Air Force Museum. Yeah. Yeah, the 4 Days in May looks like a fun event. So if you're into QRP and especially portable, that's kind of your people there, and a good group. Contest University, so that's a whole day session that's sponsored. It used to be that you had to pay to go to Contest University. I don't know if that's still the case, but that's just a whole day of dedicated forums offsite prior to Hamvention starting. So that would be on the Thursday before Hamvention. Some really great stuff. That's all live streamed and recorded, and you can go back and watch anything out of Contest University as well. And then they have a big banquet dinner as well. Flex Radio does a big banquet, and when they release a new product, they typically will give you some hints about the new product that's coming out, or full on just announce it at that banquet. So it's typically going to be your Flex Radio people there. There's a dinner for people that are into top band, and then there's also an open house at the Dayton Amateur Radio Association's shack. So as a club, the Dayton Amateur Radio Club has it's a building with a big tower, and you can go take a tour of their fancy station. So the next F in my alliteration is fanfare, and these were the big vendor announcements. And so apart from, there might have been an HTE or something released that I missed, and so I apologize for that, but these are kind of the ones that I paid attention to. There's obviously a lot of, here's a new antenna or a new battery pack or that kind of thing, but kind of the big news that people mostly pay attention to are the big rigs that are announced. So Flex Radio announced this year that they are coming out with a new line, which will be the 8000 series. I really pressed him for how would I know the difference between my 6600 and this new 8000 series in terms of functionality. And he was very transparent and said, you wouldn't really notice. It's got more modern hardware in it. It's a faster processor. The generation that I have was designed 2012. So, it's getting a little long in the tooth and harder to find parts. So they've invested in building a new framework underneath that will support the future. But today there's no new functionality. They believe they'll be able to build a lot of really cool things on top of this next generation. ICOMS was particularly interesting. So this is their new product. They want to formally announce it at the Japanese Hamfest, but they wanted to tease everybody with it at the Dayton Hamfest. So to kind of make all of that work, what they did instead was they just called it the X60. They took all of the circuit boards, put them in a plexiglass case, and put it out there, and then they would ask people, what do you think this is? And they actually had a box where you could write a piece of paper down and put your suggestion in the box. I think this is going to be your new 9900 or whatever, and put it in the box and guess what the new product would be. But so they will announce that in September, what the actual next generation ICOM product will be. That's kind of a marketing trick. Marketing trick, yeah. Food. Um, yeah, there's food. There's plenty of food. There's people will criticize food at Hamvention, just like you'll hear people go to the Iowa State Fair and say, well, yeah, the food was great or the food was terrible or whatever their opinion is. Certainly, just like going to the Iowa State Fair, there's things you probably just logically should avoid, and I do. Everybody seems to rave about pork chop sandwiches. The line was too long for me to wait for that, and I thought if I want good pork, I'll just stay home in Iowa. So, but that's typically what you're going to run into. We did find a really good Italian place that was around the corner from Hamvention this year since they've moved in. So I think it might have been the place the mayor was recommending, but we enjoyed it. Here's fun. So for the past year or two, really since I've gotten into POTA, somehow I've gotten mixed up with a group that's in an online discussion forum area where people are wanting to use CW with POTA. And what I found is there's a lot of folks that are in this discussion group that we'll say are demographically under 30 years old. And a lot of them are just dabbling, trying to learn CW for one reason or another. They're joining things like the CW Academy and different groups to try to get into it. Well, it turned out a lot of them were at Dayton, and this was their first time there, and they wanted to meet up. And so we were kind of coordinating how could we all get together. And so I ran into them, and we kind of got a kick out of that. So it's a good group of guys. This guy second from the end here standing next to me, Jonathan, he's actually done a lot of circuit design and coming up with his own QRP radios and stuff like that. So it's just fun. It especially gets me excited to see a new generation kind of getting into CW and portable operating. And then to run into them in person was a fun treat for me. So that's my pictures. I do have some video as well. I hope this will share okay through this Teams, Paul. I think it will, but I don't think, there's not really any audio we're sharing. So, yep. So I got a new toy shortly before Hamvention, a little action camera, and I put it on a little telescoping stick, and I just started walking around to see what I could see there and kind of capture some of this. So this is a little bit of the experience of walking around, and I haven't quite figured out how to run the camera yet. So you're going to kind of, if you get seasick or motion sickness, you may want to take your Dramamine now, because I think there's some settings that I could fix that, but I hadn't figured that out. So yeah, so you can see this is just walking around in the flea market area. Again, just acres and acres of kind of this. Around here a little bit. I kind of wonder when you get one of these booths. I've never had one full of a bunch of my own personal equipment. I've done it with the solar products, but if you have one of these booths and you're out there trying to sell stuff, and you've got a $5,000 radio and you've got some antique thing and you've got a bunch of batteries or just a random assortment of stuff you're trying to sell all day, I think most of them set it up on Friday morning and tear it all down on Sunday at noon. So if you're going to leave that stuff out overnight and it might rain, like how do you cover it all up and protect it? And some of the guys probably package it all up and throw it in the back of their car at night, but not all of them. So just acres and acres of stuff like that. So that's outside. I got another video clip that I did of the inside so you can see the well, that's kind of the center hub of Xenia. When you guys that have been to Hamvention, had you been to Xenia? Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the central hub where all the food vendors are. And then there's those kind of Morton building things. There's maybe, I think, 5 or 6 of them that have vendors in them, and another 2 or 3 that might have the forums in them. And you can see there's a bunch of equipment. You see those antennas up on the horizon there. There are a bunch of emergency vehicles and things like that. Guys, different organizations that have maybe almost like a mobile command center on wheels that their emergency management department has with a ham shack in the back. They'll bring them out and show those off. So those are kind of interesting to look at as well. I'll go in the building here. There we go. There's the rig expert folks, you know, they're from the Ukraine and came to the Hamvention and selling their products. There's a display of just a whole bunch of Morse key paddles. They had a meet and greet area, so you could a place for you to meet up with someone if you needed to meet up. Enwood also did not have any new products that they were showing off. They've been kind of stagnating a little bit in terms of announcements. They didn't even show up at HamCation. DX Engineering. Does anybody ever buy stuff from DX Engineering? Yeah, they had a pretty sizable booth, really, and I think they're based in Ohio anyway, so pretty interesting. There's so Dirk. I found Dirk sitting here at the Collins Collectors Association. So that bus, not bus, but that cute little Ford van. Everybody walks in and they're just, have you, anybody ever seen this thing before? Yeah. You've seen it, Chuck? Yeah, the Cedar Rapids Hamfest would have it a couple times. And so it actually lives in California now. And the guy trailered it all the way to Hamvention. It's got in the front seat, so it's, you can see it says Collins Radio Company. And I think it's a Dirk could tell me, I wish he was here. It's a 62 or 64 Ford van. But the console that's right between the driver's seat and the passenger seat, right down here, is a KWM2. And so, you know, it was made to be a mobile radio. And then in the back, you've got a bunch of Collins stuff on shelves. And it's really a cool little van. And it just draws people in because you kind of maybe don't expect that when you walk into the building. But so the Collins guys just kind of hang out there. There's Elecraft's booth. So they were highlighting their K4 equipment, and they've got a new little handheld, the KH1. That's a little 5-watt radio. And that might be about it. There's the DX Engineering with a big lineup of all of their vertical antenna products and so on. So yeah, you just kind of see that kind of stuff. But if you have any questions about any of the products, you know, the vendors are of course going to be very happy to talk to you. So I was interested in a little bit taller fiberglass mast. So this thing, it goes like 100. Don't tell my wife. It was about $130. Oh, she saw the credit card charge already. What's that? It was $139. And I know. But I got to talking to the vendor, and this is one of their more popular products. And this thing will telescope up to 40 feet. So a little bit taller. And it has some support, like skyline support straps that they've made to go with it and stuff. So I don't know if I'll actually take it out too often to go POTA. I think it'd be fun to do like with a field day, throw up an antenna with it and that kind of thing. But any questions you have about any products? So that same guy, this is from the company Vibraplex that started making keyers, and then they took over the spider beam. This is a spider beam telescoping mast, and so they've got a few product lines. But he makes an antenna that's a shortened end-fed half wave that can do 80 meters, but it's got a tuning coil in it. And I was like, oh, that'd be fun to, for 66 feet, and it'll do all the bands, including 80 meters. Like, I'd be interested in, but I've already got a 49-to-1 transformer. I would just need to know how to do that coil that you've got in the transmitting wire. I need to know how many turns that is and what the dimensions are. He's like, oh yeah, if you want to buy one, I can make one and send it to you. But if you just want to know the dimensions so you can make one yourself out of some PVC in a form, like, I'll give you all the dimensions too. So you can just strike up conversations with vendors like that are super friendly. So anyway, that's what I've got. I don't know if we have time for any questions, but anybody have any questions? Skip. You can ask anything except about money, and you can ask me about that later.
Okay, I was going to ask how she enjoyed Disney World, but I won't.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion about the demise of CQ Magazine or MFJ?
I did. That's a good question. I did not. Obviously, MFJ did not have a booth. There were still quite a few vendors selling MFJ products, and I understand they're going to be selling them until those are gone. I don't think I talked to any vendors. So, Gigaparts at HamCation, if you're familiar with the company Gigaparts, they announced a new product line. It starts with the I. Intellatron, something like that. A variety of stuff. So they have adapters, lightning protection equipment, clocks, just a variety of stuff. And it's almost like they're trying to be MFJ 2.0. So they're based out of Alabama, and they had an operation in Las Vegas for a while, but they just recently closed their office in Las Vegas. But I talked to the owner of that place, both at HamCation and at Hamvention. Super nice guy. And he's like, yeah, obviously a lot of the stuff that they get is made in China. They're super open to, hey, if there's a product that you want us to go get sourced and made and put on the market, like, talk to us. So I was talking to him about my idea for a phasing system for vertical antennas. He's like, oh yeah, that's going to go on our roadmap. We're going to get something like that figured out. We got like 70 items that are on the list of new things we're going to make. So look for them. They may be a replacement for MFJ. What was the other one, Skip? CQ Magazine. So at the contesting forum, that was a topic because CQ Worldwide, like, one of the questions is, what's going to happen to CQ Worldwide contest? And the contest manager got up there and he said, well, we're sad to say we've now had our last CQ Worldwide contest. There will be no more CQ, and everybody got a big laugh. So the contest from CQ Magazine will keep going, and that includes really all of them. So I never really did what's the June VHF contest. So I've never done that, but they're going to keep that one going, and CQ Worldwide will keep going. They didn't really see, from a contesting perspective, any impact. Apart from that, from the standpoint of the publication, I didn't hear anybody talk about the publication itself. One thing that was a topic that came up a couple times, is kind of sad because it's gone on for a while now, was the ARRL hack. So the ARRL has a big booth with different sections of the booth. There's part of the sections devoted to, youth or publications or different things. And so I actually went and renewed my membership and got a nice coffee mug for renewing my membership on site. That was $174. See, this was a cheap fiberglass mast. practically giving it away, really. So yeah, so that hack had just happened just a few days before Dayton. And I think by the time the Hamvention was over, they had restored a few of the services, but that was a question everybody was asking, like, what's going on? What is Logbook of the World going to come back online? People were trying to get cards checked at the card checking place to get their DXCC credits. And so I saw a status update on that this morning, I think, that basically said, yeah, there's some bad actors had got access to things that they shouldn't have had access to and did a ransom attack on them, and they're still trying to recover. So yeah.
No idea when, I had no idea when I looked if that's where it was. But then obviously in Orlando, there's thousands of hotels, so that part's not hard. But just the fact that Xenia and Dayton were that close together, I thought there's never gonna be enough hotels, but there was a lot of hotels to choose from, and a lot of restaurants in that area too.
Yeah.
I looked it up, Xenia's 25,000 to 700.
Is 25,000? What's Gilbert? So it'd be like Ames without the students. What other questions? Yeah, Jeff.
Good, or were there some good bargains, or was it, I don't know, just what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm not typically a flea market kind of guy. I know some people could spend all of their time out in the flea markets trying to do treasure hunting. I'll go out there, and actually, if there's somebody out there selling stuff that's brand new, like the guy selling the paddles, I kind of get drawn more to that. The used stuff, I don't know. I don't always trust it that much. So some people are looking for some super rare thing, an old Collins radio that they're going to restore anyway. So those are the guys that are out there. In terms of prices in the flea market, it's probably like the same as the prices in the back of Clint's truck. You might find a bargain, or maybe not. So yeah, I don't know. I never feel like somebody's really trying to gouge you though on prices. I've always, been pretty happy. Like maybe a good example is the Rig Expert antenna analyzers. The lowest price I've seen this year for those products were at Hamvention. So yeah, you can usually find pretty good deals there. So the trip pays for itself. You really can't afford not to go, Jeff. And there's trade-offs because you'll pay sales tax, but you won't pay shipping. So for me to ship this, from where Tennessee, I think Fiberplex is at, to ship from Tennessee to my house might have been, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks, but I probably paid less than that in tax, so come out ahead.
Yeah, to reinforce what Pat said, Paul and I struck up a conversation at breakfast one day with the guy who owns Arrow Antenna. And by the next day, we were actually working his booth for him while he went to lunch. So
I got VIP invitations to the Tapper.
yeah.
At,
Yeah, we went to a banquet that we weren't planning on going to because he was just a nice guy and had some extra seats at his table. So
that's kind of Hamvention in a nutshell.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Pat.
Sure.
All right.